I am so excited to get into the recipes in today's video. They're all variations of stuffed potatoes. They're all different, but they're all amazing in their own way. So let's go ahead and get into them. The first baked potato recipe is for the shepherd's pie twice baked potato. And I'm just gonna start out by cleaning my potatoes really well and scrubbing them. And then I just dried them off, pricked them with a fork, and just rubbed them with some olive oil. And then I salted the outside of them. I'm gonna cook these in my air fryer at 400 degrees, starting at 30 minutes. And then I will go in and flip them over, and then they can take anywhere from another like 15 to 30 minutes depending on the size. While those are cooking, I'm going to go ahead and make the shepherd's pie filling. So I'm just going to start out by sauteing some finely diced onion in a little bit of olive oil until that becomes nice and soft and caramelized. And then to that, I'm going to add in some garlic. And then you just want to cook this for a minute or two until it becomes fragrant. Once your garlic is cooked, you're going to add in 1 pound of ground beef, and then you just want to go ahead and incorporate that in with the onions and the garlic and let it cook until it becomes browned. And I use a pretty lean ground beef, so I didn't need to drain mine, but if you have a really fatty cut, then you're going to want to drain off the excess grease. And then you just want to season it with some salt and pepper to taste. And then we're going to go in with some tomato paste. And I will have all of these recipes linked on in the description box below. But I used the tomato paste and then some Worcestershire sauce, gave that a good stir, and let this cook for a couple of minutes until you could really start to smell the tomato paste. And then you're going to go in with your beef broth, and I'm just using the Better Than Bouillon, so I added my water in and then the Better Than Bouillon and just gave that a good stir. Then you just want to let this cook for a few minutes on the stove until that sauce really reduces down and it becomes like a nice thick mixture. Once that is thickened, you can add in your peas and carrots. I just did a bag of frozen peas and carrots that I cooked in the microwave according to the package directions. Honestly, I probably didn't even need to cook them. The heat of the pan would have helped to thaw them out. And then you also want to have some shredded cheddar cheese on hand, so I went ahead and shredded that using my cheese grater. Now, I've mentioned cooking baked potatoes in the air fryer before on my channel, and they are amazing. This skin is so crispy and the inside is so fluffy. If you've never tried it before and you have an air fryer, I highly recommend it, unless you're cooking like a large number of potatoes, because then you would have to do it in batches, but you could probably fit like at least 4, depending on the size, in your air fryer. But once they're cooked, you just want to go ahead and open them up, and then you're going to scoop out the insides of the potatoes, and then you want to put that into a separate bowl because we are going to use that to make our mashed potatoes to go on top. These are twice baked potatoes, so we are going to separate those out to make the mashed potatoes and top it. So you just want to kind of carefully scoop that out, and then you can see I kind of pressed down just because I took a little bit more than I probably should. So I wanted to kind of push some of that potato back onto the skin, just so it had something to kind of hold its shape. I love shepherd's pie, so this was a really fun recreation of that recipe, so I highly recommend giving it a try if you like shepherd's pie. So for the potatoes, I'm just going to go ahead and add some butter into the potatoes that we removed out, and I just start by kind of covering the butter with the potato so the heat of it can melt the butter down while I'm seasoning with some salt and some pepper. And then I'm keeping this really simple, and then I'm just going to add in some heavy cream, but you can make your mashed potatoes however you'd like, but that's just what I did here. And then I just used my masher, and then I'm going to switch back over to a spoon once they were pretty smooth, and I added in a little bit more cream because I knew it needed to be a little bit thinner before adding in the cheddar cheese. You just want to add some of it here, mix that well to combine. You don't want your potatoes to be too loose to where you can't form them over top of the potato skins, but you don't want it to be too thick either. So you're just going to fill each of your skins with the meat mixture, and then we're going to go on top of that with the mashed potatoes, and then on top of that with a little bit of extra of the shredded cheddar cheese. And then you're just going to go ahead and bake this in the oven for about 10 to 15 minutes at 400 degrees. And here they are out of the oven. Honestly, these were so good. Perfect comfort food, and like I said, a fun twist on a traditional shepherd's pie. Right, if you like buffalo chicken, you have to try this recipe for buffalo chicken stuffed sweet potatoes. I'm just going to start out by cleaning my potatoes, and then I'm pricking them with a fork. And this recipe, everything is going to cook together in the Instant Pot. When I first saw this, I kind of didn't believe it, but oh my gosh, it is amazing. So in my Instant Pot, I am just adding in some hot sauce along with some soy sauce or coconut aminos. And then you want to add in a little bit of butter. I decided after I put it in that I wanted to cut it into like 2 thinner pieces. And then to that, you're going to add your chicken breast. Now, I am having this recipe, so if you follow it, again, it will be linked in the description box. Just keep that in mind. I did do half. And so I'm just going to toss the chicken in there, and then you're going to season it with some salt, some pepper, a little bit of onion powder and garlic powder. And then we're going to place the potatoes on top of this chicken. And to do that, all you're going to do is place your trivet right on top of the chicken and then put your potatoes in. And then you're going to set this, to make sure that it's sealed, set it on high pressure for 15 minutes, and that is it. Yes, it takes time to come to pressure, but not that long. So 15 minutes, all of this from start to finish is done. So you want to let it cook for 15 minutes, and then you're going to do a quick release. So once the timer went off and it had cooked for 15 minutes, I just went in and released the pressure on the Instant Pot, and then went ahead and removed the lid once all of that steam had come off. And then everything is perfectly cooked. I was so shocked with these potatoes. Now you do want to make sure that the potatoes are about like 2 inches or maybe a little bit over. Anything bigger than that will take additional time, so just keep that in mind. So you want to just remove those out. Then you can shred your chicken right in the Instant Pot. And then I went ahead and set this onto saute function and let it cook for just a minute or 2 for that sauce to thicken up a little bit. Now, the original recipe does use some arrowroot powder to thicken the sauce, but I did not have that on hand, and I wasn't going to purchase it for this recipe. So I was reading like in the comments, and the author of the recipe did say that if you don't have it, you can leave it out, and it worked perfectly without it. But like I said, I just let it saute for just a couple of minutes so it can thicken up slightly. And then I served this with some homemade ranch dressing, some gorgonzola crumbles, and a little bit of green onion on top, and this was outstanding. And the next stuffed potato recipe is for a pulled pork stuffed potato. This is a crock pot recipe, so I just started out with my pork and I seasoned it with some salt, some pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, chili powder, and some paprika. And you want to season both sides. For this recipe, I followed a recipe. I didn't measure out the spices because I just kind of do it by sight. But I did follow a recipe, so like the other ones, I will have that linked in the description box below for you. But then at the end, I decided to add some barbecue sauce to make it like a barbecue pulled pork. You don't have to do that. This pork was amazing on its own. It had such great flavor. But after you season the first side, you want to flip it over and season the second side. And I always like to cook this with the fat on top, so that's like dripping down into the pork as it's cooking. And you're going to add a touch of water, or you can do chicken broth in there so it has a little bit of liquid. But oh my gosh, this was incredible. And as you can see here, once it had cooked down, it just falls apart so tender. But if you want to do what I'm doing and make it a barbecue flavor, then what you want to do is drain off that excess liquid, shred up the pork, and then go in with your favorite barbecue sauce. We were testing out the sugar-free, and it was really, really good. And then you're going to top this on your potato. Again, I did this in the air fryer for the traditional baked potatoes. And I wanted some sour cream, but we didn't have any. So I looked up a recipe and I did sour cream made out of cottage cheese. So in my BlendJet here, I'm just using the cottage cheese, a little bit of lemon juice, and some almond milk, but you can do regular milk. And I'm just blending that up. And oh my gosh, this tastes so similarly to sour cream, but it has more protein in it. So I want to do this all the time now. So I just added that, some cheddar cheese, and a little bit of green onion, and we were ready for dinner. Thank you so much for joining me in today's video. If you try any of these recipes, I would love it if you would let me know down in the comments below. And if you haven't done so already, I would love it if you would subscribe and join my YouTube family.